Hello, and welcome along to the stream tonight. I'm going to guess that Maurice is in the chat room because somebody has just put up a little notification to say what I'm going to be working on in the stream tonight. So, the stream tonight is what it says on there. It's doing some more work with the Cake.BuildSystems.Module. Now, if that is indeed Maurice, can you remind me of the name of the website that produces that thing? Because I went looking for that the other day, and I could not, for the life of me, remember what the website's called. Featured.chat. Thank you. I'm going to need to write that down. In fact, I'm going to write it down right now. Featured.chat. Because I haven't been in there to look at that to see if there's any new features recently, so it's not something I've been keeping an eye on. But I was curious the other day if there was any additional functionality offered by that service, or whether it is still focusing on the ability to feature chat on the stream. Anyway, welcome along to the stream, everyone. Maurice and Nils, hello and welcome along so far. The plan of attack for tonight is, as I mentioned, is to continue working on the Cake.BuildSystems.Module. So last week, I took a stab at updating the module to use Cake. No, let me get this right. What did I do last week? So last week, we shipped a new version of the Cake.BuildSystems.Module, which makes use of Cake 2.0. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a further update to the module, which allows us to use Cake 3.0, which includes new functionality, including writing out a summary onto the screen, onto the. In fact, I should probably bring it up. So let me just bring up GitHub. And what I'm hoping to show, if I go over here, and I remember what my username is, and then over here, the idea is that within a GitHub action, there's a section down at the bottom here, which is. Well, I don't have any. So normally, if you ignore the fact that we're getting some deprecation notices here, there's a section down here. When you include a summary, you have the option of including any markdown that you want to write out as part of your summary. So what I would like to be able to do is I would like to output the summary of the task summary, which tasks were run, what the duration was, etc. And what I'm hoping to do is to dig into some of the. I noticed a couple of things when we were on the stream last week that I wasn't crystal clear on what was going on. So, for example, if I go and look at the output from this workflow, if I drill down into here, and then let's just pick one here. My scroll wheel seems to have stopped. If I click on here and look at the output from the Cake script, what we'll see is there's the setup. Great, it contains the setup. There's a dependency. It contains a dependency. That's great. But there's this other section in here, which is the task setup and the task teardown. Now, those things are not working as I would have expected them to. And I had a quick chat with Nils about it. And I'm not crystal clear on what's going on, but I want to dig into it. And hopefully we get to the bottom of what that is. And if we don't, then we will take a sharp left and we'll go off and go back at looking at the markdown output that we were doing as part of the summary output. So there's a few messages in the chat, so let's go through those. So this goes back to the question that I asked earlier. So are there any new features in feature.chat? Maurice is saying, not that I can see right now, only the ticker that we talked about before. Jurgen's on the chat as well. Hello to you, Jurgen. Augusto's there. Hello, Augusto. I thought you were not here. Okay, cool. So everybody is here. All the main folks are here, so that's good. So thank you along for coming along. So the first thing I wanted to try, so I've been trying this just before I came on the stream. What I was attempting to do is I was attempting to run locally. Hey, Full Snail's coming on here as well. Everybody was not here until you arrived, unfortunately. You're right. I was wrong when I said that. So welcome along to the chat. what I was trying to do locally on my machine is I was trying to fool the my local system into thinking that it was running on GitHub Actions. So what I did was I set the environment variable that the Cake provider for GitHub Actions uses, which is the GitHub_Actions environment variable. So with that set to true, when I run my local test script, so my local test script is now the same as the test script that we have up on GitHub Actions. Ooh, now maybe that's why it was failing. Actually, so I'm trying to test everything out locally, and I was trying to trick it into thinking it was running on GitHub Actions, but I've also taken a copy of the DLLs from the module folder and I've put them into the local folder. But I'm now wondering whether it's the inclusion of this thing which is causing the issue that I was seeing. Now, the issue that I was seeing was if I run .NET Cake, then I get all this yellow text about not being able to load the module, but then the module actually does stuff because you can see the group outputs happening here. So I'm now wondering whether it's the double hop that I've got going on here. So I'm going to take this out a second and I'm going to run .NET Cake again. No, it's still doing it, so that's fine. Okay. Lots of chat messages. So Nils is questioning what Maurice was doing here when he said he wasn't going to be here. But Maurice is saying he's still working on his Mastodon server, which is mastodon.nu in the chat room if you want to check that out. Is everybody setting up their own Mastodon? I'm not setting up my own Mastodon, no, but Maurice is. Maurice was having issues with loading performance on said server, so he had turned off registration for new users last week. I don't know if he has been able to get past that or not, but he's actually saying there, I have it all running already, but I need to upgrade something. Yes, so we can DDoS everyone's blogs. You need to purge the tools. No, I don't think that's it. Because okay, let's go back to the start. Because what I'm now, it might be easier, by the way, at some point, Nils, that you might, if you were willing, it might be easier just to chat to you by bringing you in as a guest on said stream. But we'll see where we get to, and if you're willing, it might be easier to pull you into the stream to have a wee chat directly as opposed to going through chat messages. But we'll see how that goes. But for now, what you are suggesting there was if I go up, and that's the wrong folder. So I put this one back over here. Because what I was doing was I was copying from one to the other. So if I go up to here, and in my modules folder, I'm going to clear out the 420 folder. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go into the build systems folder here, and I'm just going to pull in all of these DLLs and I'll put them in there. And what does that give me? Okay, so that didn't give me the error. So that's good. But what we can see, and this is the part where I think that is the root cause of the problem that we're seeing, is we've got a group here for the setup, and then we've got the output from the this is the setup, and then we end the group. We've then got another group for the dependency B, but you'll see that there's not another subgroup here, there's not another nested group for the task setup. Now, what I don't know is whether nested groups are actually supported in GitHub Actions. And if nested groups are not supported, then we have a problem. However, even if nested groups were not supported in GitHub Actions, I still would have expected to see another group being added between this line and this line to say, please set me up the task setup group. But I'm not seeing that in the output here. So even though, if we go back to the GitHub engine, We are registering for the before setup and the after setup. We're registering for the before task setup and the before task teardown, and then the before teardown and the after teardown. So in the before task setup, we are writing a start block, which should be writing out the : group with the task name. But I'm not seeing that unless I have got confused with what it's doing. Or is that this part? Am I reading that wrong? That was the before task setup. So maybe that is right. But why then? That's the setup, and that's the group for dependency B. Hold on. Before setup and after setup. Before task setup. No, that's not what I want, is it? Or I think I'm thinking about this wrong. I think what I expected was that there would be a nested group that was the task setup, and it would be any output from the task setup and any output from the task teardown. But Nils is saying, I think we're missing the after task setup and the after task teardown. Let's maybe group these a little bit. So we've got before setup and we've got after setup. We've got before task setup, and Nils is suggesting that we need an engine dot after task setup on after task setup, and then before task teardown and engine dot after task teardown. Some of these were definitely new, yes. On after task teardown. Okay. So on before, what we did was a start block. So I'm assuming then what we want is on after task setup. I'm going to assume that that's after task setup args. Task setup. I've got no reason to think that those are of any different. So we want that. Right end block doesn't need the name then, it just wants that. Okay. So this is kind of guesswork, but let's run with it so far. So then on here, we've got on after task teardown, after no, we made them all the same in that change. What does that mean? The event args? You're saying they're the same? It's not shouting at me. So before setup, after setup, before task setup, after task setup, before task teardown, after task teardown. Okay. Let's see if that builds. Marissa's saying that line 83 should be a start. On before TaskTeardown. I think Maurice might be onto something. So on before is a start. On after is an end. On before is a start. On after is an end. On before should be a start. Yes. And then that once e dot task teardown context dot task dot name. Okay. And then on after is an end, on before is a start, on after is an end. Okay. So that's likely halfway through a build. So let's let that finish. So while that's building, would you want to come on the stream, Nils? You are totally allowed to say no, but if you come on, it might just make some of this a little bit easier. So before is more before than start. Before is, yes, it is. It's the start of the beginning. That's what it is. Okay, so let's run that one more time. Because if you did want to come on, there would be a little bit of setup where I would need to go take you to the Twitch backstage, and then I could pull you through. What is the most before is that one done? My AirPods keep falling out. Okay, so if this one works, I will need to copy and paste the DLLs again. So what we'll do is we will nuke the ones that we had in there, and then once the build is finished, we can pull them over. And that could be okay. Now let me twitch.tv, because I've toyed with this and I think I have it working. But the idea is that in my over here, I should be able to invite you in to the chat. And at that point, everyone on the stream should be able to both hear you and me coming through. Which guest star is what it's called. Let's just have. Let's see if we can figure out how to do it again. I keep forgetting how to do it. Joining as a guest, getting started. Getting started. There's a section of the page. Configure webcam. Invite and slot guests. Now that you have your slots, no. Where's the button? Oh, I think they've filled out the instructions a little bit, because there's more words in that document that I was just looking at there. What is your handle on Twitch? It's Nils_Ann by the look of it. Backstage activity will be recorded. Twitch may record sound and video to review. Okay, fine. Don't say anything you don't want to say in backstage. I should be able to invite guests, and then I can search for Nils_Ann. There he is. I'm going to send you a wee invite. Now there will be a little bit of setup in the browser, Nils, where you'll be asked different things, but once you've got those things, I should be able to bring you in to the stream. So let me know when you've done that part, and I will do some copy and pasting over here. I'm going to go into Publish Libraries. I'm going to go into the Build Systems module. I'm going to go there. And I'm going to copy and paste all of these ones over. And then I should be able to go in here and run the same build again. So let's test this part out and see what happens. So it still thinks I'm running GitHub Actions because of that environment variable. So now, we said they've got more stuff. So we've got a setup with the setup end group. Group for the dependency B. Oh, but hold on. It's because of the... This part's confused me. So we've now got two groups. We've got two groups that say dependency B. That's not helpful. So I think what we need instead then is we need some verbiage to indicate that it is a task setup rather than, or do we just want, we maybe want task setup : and then the name. The setup is for the whole script, so we don't need to distinguish those ones. But for this one, what we might want is task setup : and then something like that. But then I'm old school, but I'll get shouted at for doing that. So I should do perhaps that instead. Is that how string literals work? I need something at the start, don't I? Ooh, okay. So nils is... I'm going to slot nils into... Thank you, Jurgen. I knew it was something. I'm still a string.format dude. I've never really got into string.literals yet. I'm going to slot nils into the guest slot in there. And at this point, me and Nils might be able to have a wee conversation that you can't hear. Ooh, so I can see Nils now. Can I hear Nils? Can Nils say something? Ooh. So we'll fix the feedback in a second, because you'll be hearing me twice. So if I were to do this and turn my mic off, you should now only hear... Well, it might be easier to mute the Twitch stream than Nils. Although that means that you won't be able to hear folk. That's an interesting one. Because if you wait for me to speak through Twitch, then we will have a slight delay. But if so it's a time lag, exactly. But now I've unmuted my microphone again. If you were to mute Twitch, then you would just hear me and you chatting directly. Okay, so, this is good then. Okay, so if I were to do Twitch chat, Twitch guest star. So if I change this URL to be something from over here, where do I get the URL again? Where do I copy? Oh, where did it go? I see a little person waving. I'm going to click. Let's see if this is the same URL. It's maybe not, but let's do this. And does that put you up there? Oh, it does. Look. Okay. So everyone, hopefully, should be able to see Nils. And if Nils says something, they might be able to hear him. Oh. So me and you will still communicate, but there will be a slight time lag in it going out, yes. But you and me can have a conversation normally, but they're still saying that no. So hold on, there's one thing I still need to do. So let me see if I can figure this part out again. Let's do this and do this. And now, whoa, where did Nils go?
Gone.
Oh, you're back. But now Nils can say something.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
And hopefully the correct answer is yes. Yay! Jürgen says that we can hear Nils. Okay, great. Okay.
Yay.
So this functionality is brought to you by Twitch Guest Star. So this is... So basically, Twitch is now providing a backstage area where I can add people into the backstage area, and then via an OBS browser source, I can bring different people. So up to and including 5 guests, I think. So we could have a total panel discussion going on, and all I would need to do is bring in another OBS browser source to bring other folks into the stream as well. So Nils and I can chat privately via like a private chat, so we can talk about yous in amongst ourselves in our wee private chat area if we wanted to. But the idea is that we can bring folks onto the stream to help out, as is the case here. So my thought process then, Nils, as you were coming in, I don't know if you saw that part, it was that I think I was being too generic in the what I was writing out, because it was confusing me, which is easily done. So over here, if we look at the output, then we end up with 2 groups that have got dependency B in it. So one is for the task setup, and one is for the actual, and one is for the task teardown. So I think it would be better if we were to include something like task setup and then the name, and then task teardown in the name, so that it was clear which one was which. So does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, and probably we're missing one group. I'm guessing we're now grouping the setup and the teardown, and we're not grouping the task itself.
Okay. So let me just finish writing this part then. So this is going to be the keyboard is all over the place. E dot that one. I'm going to need some. Yeah. So I'm right. So we want task teardown is that one, and then that becomes the curly bracket. That becomes a curly bracket, and then we have that. So if we go back to here, so what you're saying is, let's make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully you can still see this. So there might be a slight time lag between what you hear me say and what you see happening on the screen, right? Because we're not sharing a screen directly.
So it's not confusing at all.
So if we look at what we've got though, so we've got a group for the setup, and then we end the group that is the setup. We then have a group that is the task setup, and then we end the group that is the task setup. Then we have the output of the task itself, and then we have a group that is the task teardown, and then end the group that is the task teardown. And then, yes, I think we're missing an end group for the task itself. No. No, I don't think we are. But are we? But do we need to have a double group? Yeah. As in, do we need to start 2 things when we do the first task setup?
Yeah, either that, if we can nest the groups.
So that's what
we can.
Kind of.
If we cannot nest the groups, we probably need another start after the end group.
So the example that I was trying earlier, if we go up to here and we look at cake test and we look at workflows build.yaml, what I was doing here was I was trying to echo a group, and then I was trying to echo another group, and then I was trying to say inside the nested group, end the nested group, then write out the inside group for the group that was started up here, and then write out the end group. So I was trying to do an example nested group. Okay? So if I go to actions here and show the output from that build, and we look at, it was the Ubuntu one that I was looking at, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Then under my install cake script, I had, it's on verbose output, so it's got lots of output here. But down at the bottom here, no, I was actually in the wrong one. Group logs. So here's the group, but that just contains, it's weird because that is expanding a line here, but it's the nested group has the inside the nested group, but this one doesn't appear within the first one. And the verbiage that's meant to be within inside the my title group doesn't seem to be captured within the my title group. So I don't think it's working the way that we want it to, because what it should be doing is group my title, which is this one, and then the nested group should be within that thing. So nested group should only be visible when I expand my title, but it's not working that way.
Yeah, seems like we should avoid nested groups.
Now, I did have a quick Google, and according to Mr. Google, there is an open issue from, where was that? There's an open issue from 2020 where nesting group and n-group workflow commands wasn't working, and there wasn't a resolution on that as to whether it should work or not. So I'm not convinced that it works. So on that basis, what I think I'm hearing is that we should have individual start and stops for setup, task setup, the task itself, then any end task setup, no, task teardown, and then the task itself in between as a group. Yes?
Yes.
So, how do we achieve that then? Because we have a task. When does the task start? And is there a before and end that we can put on the task execution itself?
Yes, what Jürgen said in the chat. We start the task as the last thing after setup and end it as the first thing before teardown.
But there doesn't have to be a task setup or a task teardown. They're optional events on a task itself. So I don't think we can guarantee that they'll be there.
Yes, they will be fired. I'm pretty sure.
We can test that out. We can test that out. So let's go with Jürgen's plan then. So, and Nils informed me of the connection, Jürgen. So I feel I understand a little bit more about the connection. So it's good. So let's test that out then. So what we're saying is we start the task group in the after task setup. So the after task setup is this one. So we're saying we write the end block and then we write a start block immediately then is what we're saying. And then we're going to write a start block, and that's going to need a build system. So it's going to need the same build system that we had before. And then we need to give it a name. And we know that from the E argument, I think. So the E argument has a task setup context and then a task and then a name. So we know what that is. So that was the task setup. So in this case then, do we want something like just task this time? And then where am I at? That's me closing it there.
There's one
there. I've got the wrong one. There we go. Okay. And then we write the end block for the start of the task in the before task teardown. Correct? So that means we want this one. Correct?
Yes.
But then that doesn't have
Teardown
that.
context.
That just wants one of those dudes. Okay. So let's do this once more. Let's build this again then. And let's see if we can get that to work then. So I'll clear out my module folder again, and then we'll wait for this to finish. Wait for that build to finish. Okay, now, oh, that's fine. So follow-up question then. Is there anything that we need to do for the other build modules based on the introduction of the task setup and task teardown before and after events? And if there is it similar to this, or do we work on the premise that something like, say, Azure Pipelines can do nested groups, or will we need to set up a build test similar to what we're doing here to make sure that it all works the way we expect it to?
Jürgen has tested that on Azure. I think we need to update them all, and I think we need to bring them all to the state that we have now.
Okay.
If one of them supports nesting, we can either change that later or...
Okay. So Jürgen's response there, where Azure cannot, is we're saying that Azure Pipelines can't do nested groups. Is that what you're saying, Jürgen? And Nils is nodding, so I'm assuming that's what it means. And if that's the case, that's fine. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that will mean then we will need the additional event firings that we were missing from this one copied over to there. Then there's a Travis one to play with. I haven't played with Travis in a long time. There's a MyGet one that I haven't played with in an even longer time. And then I forget the fifth module. There's another one. We'll see it here actually when I'm doing this.
The JetBrains one, Team City?
Team City, that one I can play with because that one I do use on a regular basis. So I could take some... That one definitely does do nested groups because... Yeah, it definitely does. So let's try this again then. So come over here, let's clear this out, and then let's run this dude again and see what we get in the output. GitHub Actions runtime step summary is missing. Don't know what that is. We'll come back to that. So we had a group for the setup and we end the group. We have a group for the task setup for dependency B. We run that task setup, we end the group. We then have a task that is dependency B, which is outputting just dependency B. End that group. We then have a group which is the task teardown for dependency B, which is just dependency B. End group. Group that is the setup for dependency A. End group. Group for task dependency A, which is dependency A. Okay, so that looks good, I think. Although, we'll come back to that one, right? No, should we do it now? So this is, I don't think this part is right. Because do we want to show these task setup and teardown for skip tasks?
Yes, I think we have the same problem with the setup and teardowns that don't have any events subscribed. Now we always print the groups, regardless of whether there's something in it or not.
Well, I was going to test, so that part I was going to test out by removing the task setup and tear. I was going to comment these out. Well, not that one. That would be a bad one. I was going to comment these out to see what they did. But I think it's going to do what you're saying. It's always going to fire the groups for the before and the after, even though there's nothing in them. So we can prove that out though. So we can do Oh, come on now. There's a quicker way of doing this. Let's do this if my keyboard works. No. Try that again. Let's do that. Right, so I've commented out the task setup and the task teardown. Now what I would like is to not see the groups for the task setup and teardown for dependency B and C. I suspect that they're going to be there. In fact, let's clear this out again. .NET Cake. So we have this group for the setup, and then we have the group for the task setup. So even though there's nothing there, that I don't want. Is there anything in the arguments passed into the, where is it? Over here. Is there anything passed into here that we could use to say what we want to do?
Probably not. What we really needed would be like detecting whether there are other subscribers than us.
E dot has the name, but that's not the. Yeah, because all we're doing is subscribing to the event. But actually, oh, hold on. There's a thought. Hey, Surly Dev, how are you? I was looking at something that I thought, is it here? There is a private member that is an actions list within the Cake engine. The Cake engine has a list of actions and a list of tasks. And there is a register setup action that is called to add the setup action to that actions collection. So I'm wondering whether we can ask if there is a task setup action before calling the group, if that makes sense. But I don't think we have access to that from the engine. Let's have a wee look though.
The other weird idea would be to buffer the whole output between before and after, and then decide if we print something.
I see we're getting
the output, and then print it only if we have some lines between the before and between the start group and the end group. And we wouldn't need to buffer the whole output. We would only need start buffering when we have a start group. And when we get something different than the end group, other than the end group, then we print out what we have and stop buffering. And I'm guessing that would also solve our issue with the skip task.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But that would mean, would we get, so we have access to the console object within here. But what you're saying is what, redirecting that console output and then writing it back?
Yeah. But in that case, we would always remove every group that simply has no output. That's probably not what we want in all cases.
No, because there might be actually no output from the group or from the contained group. So Surly Dev's saying in the chat room, I'm good, thank you. Surly Dev has been playing with Git extensions since you told me about it a few weeks ago. I need to dig into it more to get aware of the functionality of it. So yes, I'm glad to see that you're using it. I personally think it's a great little tool. But no, I don't know what to do for the best, because it feels like we're missing something, and it feels like we're missing whether or not there is actually an action associated with the section of the code that's executing. And like I say, there is a internal, what is it? There's an internal CakeEngine Actions object within the Cake engine, but it's private, so we can't get access to it. So we can't.
So if we ignore the before and after thingies for now, can we detect whether a task was skipped based on the event args?
Let's have a look. That would be in the after event args, right? Maybe.
Don't know actually.
Cake.context.
Does the setup run if the task is skipped? No one knows. Who coded that?
Who would know? We definitely have access to that information in the when we're writing the summary report, because that's one of the criteria that we use for whether we include it in the output or not.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if we would have access to it in the. Unless there's another one that we can register to here. I don't think there is. There's the after setup, after task setup, after task teardown, setup. Yeah, there's not one for the actual. Oh, well, tasks. Could we get into here? We might be able to get into there to then. No.
We would need to find the task that is the current one.
So we would know that we can get that we can get the task name from the event args. So within one of these methods we would get the specific task, but it then doesn't have information on the current state of that task. It just knows the task instance that needs to be executed.
Yeah.
Huh.
Seems we need to expand a little on the event args.
I think we do, in order to, but then that doesn't help. But the goal of this stream was to modify the build modules, BuildSystems.Module, but it feels like in order to complete that work, we would need some changes to the Cake engine to expose the required information.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to suggest we shelve this current scope of work then and go to the other part, which was the writing of the summary then. Let's shelve this, and me and you can maybe have a conversation about this off stream when we're not at the behest of getting things done and still talking about stuff. So let's do that then. So the part that I was working on last week, because I don't think you were on the stream last week, so you would have missed this part unless you went back and watched it, which I'm not saying you have to do.
Of course I did.
So where we got to over here was we were creating a new instance of the iCake reporter or report printer, which was a specific implementation for GitHub Actions. And where we got to was that we were attempting to make some valid Markdown output. Now, I actually went and read up about Markdown, and this colon thing here is not doing what I thought it was doing. I don't know if you know what this does, but
doesn't that leftify and...
It does. It's for left alignment and right alignment or center alignment of the column. I did not know that. So I'm going to take that part out because I don't think I want to left align and right align things. But the Azure report printer is doing some clever stuff where it's trying to left align and right align the output. So I'm going to say that I don't want that just now. Now, the other thing that I was going to look at that I think is missing from the oh no, because they've got it in the duration, so that's where it was going in. So that's where it was skipped or not. So it's task duration and then the skip reason. So I'm going to attempt to include the skip reason in the summary output in the same way that we've done in Cake version 3 when we toggle the configuration value. But I'm going to say that we will just do that work directly in here because, well, we can, because it's a specific report printer for what we're talking about in GitHub Actions. So then we say, based on whether we include the skip reason column, and that is dependent on whether there are any skip reasons, we'll either optionally include a 3-column output or a 2-column output. One has got the formatted duration in it, the other one's got the skip message. And then the end result of that is we should be able to set the set step summary with the output of there. Now, that would seem fine to me, but then that maybe explains, or that maybe, why am I getting that red output when it attempts to write it out then? GitHub Actions runtime step summary missing. Oh, that's the environment variable doesn't exist. So the environment variable that it's trying to write to is called something. Let me go and find that.
Do we need to detect whether we're running inside the GitHub Actions runner or not?
We do and we don't. And by that I mean that was already being done up here. So if in the overridden write method, we make a decision about whether we're running on GitHub Actions, and if we are, we write to Markdown, otherwise we write to the console. Now, in my faked environment, I am running in GitHub Actions because I've set that environment variable. So it will be attempting to write to Markdown, but it's failing because it's missing the other environment variable.
Yeah, not what I wanted to get at. Matthias did something to the runner, to the Cake for GitHub Actions runner. Because only in a hosted runner you have access to some of these special environment variables.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, let me see if there's actual output specifically for that verbiage. So GitHub Actions runtime steps, GitHub Actions runtime. Let's see if there's any. Although, let me find this one. Okay, so that's there, and then paste that into there. Ooh, okay. So throw an exception if the runtime step summary is equal to null. Should maybe just bring this over onto the stream, shouldn't I? Let me go over to here. Let me go over to here. GitHub, cake build cake. Let's go into github.dev. And then let's search again for that output. I don't know how big that is to come through, but I can always make it a bit bigger. So in here, there was this one where it explicitly says if the actions environment.runtime.step summary equals null, it throws an exception. So then that's a question of where is this dude set? Now F12 there is not going to get me what I want. So that is on the actions environment. So actions environment is of type actions environment is of type there. GitHub Actions environment info. GitHub Actions environment info. Nope. Nope. I'm gonna make this bigger again. GitHub Actions, this one. So in here, it had something that said I'm already lost. That was down here on the step summary, the runtime.step summary. Runtime is the GitHub Actions runtime info. We'll get there yet. So the GitHub Actions.
Love the to-do comments on the code examples.
Oh, I've just seen that as well. GitHub Actions runtime info is this one. So in here, there's summary is a bad thing to look for. Step summary. Okay, so that is looking specifically for the GitHub step summary. So if I fake that and say that env that equals start, then what happens when we run it? Okay. That env that didn't do what I thought it was going to do.
Check if you have a file called start now.
I've what now?
A file.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I do. Oh. Oh. Sorry, that's the wrong. It would be this one. Oh. Look at that. That's almost like what we want then, right? Maybe. So it includes the setup, it includes the dependency B, dependency A. This was the skipped one, so that was the name of the task. The result was it was skipped, and the was skipped reason was this is a skipped task. The default task then has that duration, and then the teardown had that duration. That is almost entirely what we want, right?
Yes.
Maybe.
Still the
So I hadn't rebuilt it. So let's imagine that that had that in it.
yeah.
So if I were to take that and go over to here and do a new gist.github.com, and I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to put that in there. Then that doesn't look too terrible, does it?
Yeah, looks good.
I might see if Jurgen's still on the line and see if that is similar to what you would get from Azure DevOps pipelines with step summary. I'll see if he's still around. And if he's not, we could maybe take it for a spin and we'll run it directly in the action that I've got going. But if we look at, okay, so Jurgen's saying that would be similar. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the color coding and things. It doesn't have the, I mean, it's not perfect, but I think, and I don't think you can do a footer in a markdown table. I went and looked for that during the week. I don't think that concept exists. But are we missing? We are missing a final one that is the total, though. Are we? We don't have a final line that says the total. Can we get that information? I think we can. Where was that? That was in the report printer. So the report printer is this one. Close that dude again. I think what we're missing is a final one. But what is it we do for the... Let me see if I can find that. Report printer for this one. We then did a step format duration. Get total time. Where's that?
That was the Spectre console one, right?
Yeah.
It had a footer.
It did have a footer, but it also had a method that was get total time. So we could borrow the get total time method, which is this one. So let's just, where are we? This is in a right markdown. So let's close that. And then let's do that. IEnumerable of sure. So that will give us that. Then what we can do is after here, we could do another one that is sb.append line. And then in here, do we need an if button maybe again? No, let's just put it in the second column because we know we'll have two. So let's just do that, where that is total. And then this is going to be get total time. What did that take? That took entries. Where do we get that from? We got that from just the report. So that would be just report. Okay. Think. So then let's build this. And then we could do this. And then maybe that will work. And if it does, then that would be the summary part of the thing I wanted to do done. So that maybe takes us full circle, if this does work, that maybe takes us full circle back to what do we do about the task setup and teardowns. But
I'd say we leave them in for now and revisit later.
As in, write them out anyway, knowing that they're going to be empty.
I feel what we have now is better than what we had before, because that was all mixed in one.
Yes. So let's do this and let's see if this works. And if it does work, let's add the DLLs directly into the tools folder, and we'll run it on GitHub Actions with the module files included, and we'll see what gets output on GitHub Actions. Look at the output and see what it looks like, and then we can see where we get to after that.
Yep.
Okay. So let's wait for this to build. What's your experience of the of the Twitch guest star thing? Was it fairly seamless or painless to get in?
Yes, it was really painless. I mean, there's the two-factor thingy, and then I got a short message with another code, so whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, that was really seamless.
Okay, good.
It's a bit complicated looking at the video, seeing myself.
Yeah.
With like a second or two time lag.
So when I did this before, when I brought people in via Skype over an NDI connection, the way that we kind of got around that was we had either a Zoom session open, or we shared my screen via Skype or whatever we were using. So you had the person that was on the call had a near real-time display of what I was outputting, but that had its own overhead, because then I had essentially two connections going out the door whilst trying to encode video and all that sort of stuff. Perhaps the way to do it would be something like a Visual Studio Code live share, but then I would need to force myself to use the console in Visual Studio Code rather than in PowerShell to allow you to see everything that I see, I think. But
and that would allow me to type.
Yeah, and that's the dangerous, because then you could write naughty things while I'm streaming, and we can't have that. So, oh, actually, don't save. Let me open that one again. Ooh, it appended things. Okay, so let's ignore the thing at the top, because that's not there. All that there is this now. So we have, and in fact, let's grab this again, copy, and put this over into my gist over here, and then paste it down again. And at that point, we get task duration, setups, dependencies. This one was skipped. That was the default. There was the overall teardown, and then the total was that. I think that's quite close. Format. No, let's not do that. That would just be really rude, Maurice. That's just no. You're definitely not getting a screen share with a live coding session. No. Maybe add an empty room before total.
Yes, I was thinking exactly that. The total looks like it's mingled in the data.
Okay, we could do that. So let's go back to this one. So, well, let's put this one above then. Let's put this here then. And I guess you can make the total bold. Is that just a straight up? Oh, let's test it, actually. I have a test thing here. So let's do this, and let's do star. Preview. I don't know if that looks bold or not, but I think it is. And let's do, we would do the duration as bold as well then. Did we want to do anything else to it? Did we want to do like underline? Or, I mean, to make it really stand out? Jurgen saying it does look a little bit bold. What's underline in GitHub, in Markdown?
Underscores.
Is it as simple as that?
Yes.
As in that? No. Is it just one then? Or is that not? No, that's italic. That's not what I was gunning for, but that might help too. Okay, so let's do bold italic. Let's do that. Let's make it stand out. Okay. Bold italic with an extra line. So let's do what we were going to output, which was that, no, that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay, how does that look? That's what we're gunning for. Yes, Maurice, you're right. So I came over and read your message after I did it. But that's the intention of how it's going to look. I think that looks okay. I think. So let's go back to our code. And let's do... Yeah, but I don't think we'll... maybe you're right. Okay, so let's do this then. I think you're right. So let's do that, 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 that. Oh, but then that's where we would need the if, buts, and maybes. Nope. We would need this to know, so it was, because otherwise it would bug me, because I wouldn't be able to sleep if I left it like that. So we would need this in here, and then else. Then we would do that, then we would do that, and then we would do that, and then we would do that, and then we would put an extra one in there.
And now you got to include the total line in the if too.
I do now, because I've just said I won't be able to sleep, so I will need to do that. Yes, and that's okay though. I can do that. So let's do that, and let's do that, and then let's do that and that. No, the wrong keyboard. And then, actually, no, we don't need that one. We just need it to be closed. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That looks good. And then we're right.
Missing the stars and the italics.
Oh, we are absolutely doing, yes. That was the whole point of what we were doing, right? So let's do, so we'll copy that, we'll stick that up there. And then we need those around there, and in fact, let's do it in there. There's probably a refactoring that we can do here to make it prettier, but let's just that. I'm not reading the chats just now. I'm knee deep in Markdown. I'll come back to you in a second. And then, no. Did I get them all? One more. There we go. Beautiful.
There's one, yeah.
Line
Everyone's
121.
Screaming at you for
Everyone's screaming. 121. What have I done? Oh, here. I see it. I see it now. Thank you. Thank you, audience members. I think Maurice gets the internet points that time, Jurgen. He was a little bit quicker on you on the draw that time. So let's do the build one more time. And let's see what that output does. If that works, then... if that works, then I think we should throw it up onto GitHub Actions and see it in action and see what it looks like. I was about to pop it on feature chat. You should totally do that too while we're here. like I said, I completely forgotten what that service was called, Maurice. I went to try and find it, and I think part of the problem is that I use my Twitch account to log into it. So I didn't have like a dedicated entry in my password manager for it, so I couldn't even find it. But yes, feature.chat is the one that we were using. There it goes. Forgot an underscore on for the total on 121. It's quite clever. It really is. But yeah, I'm quite liking this guest star thing. It seems to work quite well so far.
Yes,
from my perspective, anyway. I mean, I can hear you and see you perfectly well. Although I'm looking at you on the OBS output, I'm not looking at you in the backstage. It's on my other screen. I'm looking at you through OBS, but it's near real time in terms of what it can show me. So it works quite well. I'm quite happy with it so far. Especially now that everyone can hear you. The first time I brought someone on was Stevie. I brought Stevie on and nobody could hear him. And then I went and played with it with Pascal during the week that week, and his webcam wasn't working. So I could hear him, because I figured out how to hear people, but I couldn't see him. So in both of those scenarios, one of the two things wasn't working. So this is the first time that I've had both things working on stream, so that's good. Okay, so I've copied that over. So now if we run this build, .NET Cake, and we look at our start file, it's added stuff in. Okay, cool. So let's ignore this stuff again and grab this, and then we go over to my test one, which was here. Let's nuke that one, stick in what's just been output. There's a couple of extra lines at the end we might want to get rid of, but we preview that. Oh, look at that. So we've got a task duration, skip reason, we've got setup, all those things, yada yada yada, and then we've got a total at the bottom, which, just eyeballing it, looks like it is the right number, which is good. Okay, so let's do another test while we're here before we throw it up, and that other test would be to comment him out so that the skipped one isn't included. So let's go up here and take that out again, and back to here, and we run .NET Cake, and we should no longer see the skipped one in the output, which we don't. And if we go over to our start, it's now only got 2 columns in it. And if we go back over here and we eyeball what that looks like, then we preview that. Then we have task duration, tasks, the durations, and then the total. I think that looks all right. Obviously, it's behind my head. You can't see all of it, but it is there. Okay, so let's do this then. Let's go to here. Let's close him out. And then let's decide what we need to do to make this work on GitHub Actions. So we'll remove that file. We won't include those changes, so we'll revert those. I bumped it to be Cake 3, which we will need to do. We'll add in all of these things. So let's go in this. Let's do this. Test out all the things. So I'm checking in directly all the module files, which would come through the module preprocessor directive normally, but we will run it directly from the tools folder. And let's do that, and let's do this, and git push origin. Let's see what that does. Git fetch origin, git rebase origin main master git push. Don't do that at home, folks. That's not a good way of doing things, but I know what the state of it is. So let's leave that. Surly Dev is. Oh, hold on. Maurice was saying this is what the audience sees in Twitch. Can you send me that on Slack, or because I can't get that out of the thing that I'm looking at? Oh no, I can. Hold on. Am I on chat? Maybe can. Twitch.tv. Okay, does it show me the chat? Oh, it does. Okay, cool. So let's do this. Ooh, I see what you're getting at. So what Maurice is saying is that anyone who is looking at my stream on Twitch sees that Nils is currently a guest on the Twitch, so they've kind of integrated all of that stuff. That's pretty cool. I like that. But Surly Dev is making a suggestion, and that suggestion is to include a series of dashes or equal signs in the empty row before the row you leave before the total. Sorry. I think the suggestion there is, I'm not sure what that would do though. I don't think that would make it. I don't think it. Let's try it. But then how? In order for, I would need to satisfy my own OCD. I would need to know the maximum characters in each column so that they matched. I'm not sure if I want to go to the bother of counting them. And Surly Dev is saying just to undo that, or there's another suggestion. I can certainly undo it. I can't undo it easily though. Let's do this. Put it back to there.
Yeah, you could probably try to add an HTML horizontal rule, but I kind of liked it the way it was, with a small row in between though.
Let's just see if this even works. Yeah. I'm not sure if I like that. But anyway, let's see what it's doing live. So let's go to this one. And let's go to my actions. And then test all of the things. Now, if this works on the first screen, which has got 3 successful jobs, we should have 3 step summaries down here. So we have the step summary from the Windows output that took however that number is, and I don't know what that number is. Job summary generated at runtime. We have the step summary from our macOS build, which took a different number. And then we have a step summary from our Ubuntu build that was the quickest one. So, I think that, to me, that's useful. Because if one of these... Now, well, but then that leads to the next question, right? So, well, no, let's finish off the thought. Let's hold that thought. Let's go into one of the jobs, and then let's see what the grouped output looks like. Let's go into the Ubuntu one. So let's go to our run cake script. And down here, oh, we've got all the verbose output. So scroll down to the bottom. So we have the setup that had stuff in it. We had the setup. Now this has got the verbose output on. So it will have stuff in it. But that's because it's the verbose output. In fact, let's do it again without the verbose output, because it's going to confuse things. Because not everyone runs it with verbose output. So let's go to our action. And let's take off the verbosity. In fact, let's just take it out completely and run that again. I don't think that's a fair test. I'm just reading Surly Dev escaping out of Vim within the Twitch chat there. It depends on the size of the task names. That could be something like do the thing with the thing and the thing. Yes. Then just between the timings, but no, after seeing it. Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, I'm still holding that thought. So, remind me I've got a thought in my head for when we run this. So, we look at the run cake script. It won't have all the verbose output this time, hopefully. It's got some warnings about... That's the warnings I was seeing before. Oh, because it's still probably got the module in it. Anyway, so the setup actually had some setup. The task setup didn't have anything. Oh, what's that doing? Oh no, the task setup does have task setup because I uncommented the commented code. So there is a task setup being in play at this point. Because if I go back to here and look at my build.cake, then within that task setup, I'm doing task setup Bob, task setup with the name. So that part is working as expected. And then we've got the task, which is just outputting the dependency. We've got the TaskTeardown, which is doing that. But if we were to do this again and remove that task setup and teardown, we would still get these empty groups. And I think we should probably just sanity check that, but I'm almost convinced that's exactly what would happen. So into here, and let's just take them out for now. I'm going to take out my task setup and task teardown. In fairness, it's not something I use a lot of. I don't. Oh, I'm not editing. I'm hitting delete. I'm trying to figure out why it's not deleting, but I see why now. I don't use task setup and task teardown very often because normally where I've seen people use it is to do the what was I'm trying to say? Where I've seen people use it is to do the grouping that is being done by the build module. Because otherwise, I don't know what else you would do, or what, you know what I mean. I don't use it very often. Is well, that's my statement. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, let's look at the output again. Thank you, Maurice. I see what you're doing, and it's spot on. So in here, in my cake script, I've got an empty task setup. I've got an empty task teardown, an empty task setup for the skipped one, and an empty task. So that I don't like. I don't like that the skip task is still in there as well. But I like that I see my dependency with a named group here that doesn't have the hyphen dependency hyphen and then the output. I like that we've removed those within this provider. And what I mean by that is we don't see this part and this part because we've already got that grouping happening, so we don't need that additional output. But I think there's some offline work to be done to improve the eventing within the Cake engine so that we can control this a little bit better. Now, the thought that I was having, I've now completely forgotten what it was.
But you do remember that it was there.
I do remember that it was there, but I've completely forgotten what the thought was.
Probably about the other providers.
No, I don't think it was. No, it was. Oh, that's going to annoy me now. Oh, no, I remember what it was. I do remember. Right. So if we go to the summary, right, we scroll down. This was the happy path. We had 3 successful builds, right? So as a result of that, we get 3 summary outputs, one for Windows, one for Mac, and one for Ubuntu. If one of these builds fails, the write method of the iCake reporter isn't used, or it isn't called. So as a result, the summary output is not going to show for the failed build. Now I can prove that, I think, if I can remember how to do it. So let's do it. I'm going to attempt to prove this to myself. So while I'm typing nils, how do I figure out what operating system a Cake build is currently running on? Because I'm going to need that information. Because I'm going to put into one of these tasks, if running on Windows, throw a build, or one of them.
Environment dot
Here.
Is Windows?
Here. So let's put it on dependency B. So we're going to do an if button maybe. If environment dot is running on Windows. Is that it, or is that what Cake Recipe gives us?
No.
Throw new exception Bob. Let me grab this. Let me go over here.
Platform. Cake has them as extensions on the platform.
Built-in platform environment aliases. Is running on Windows. And it has an example that is running on Windows. So you don't. It has an alias. So we should be able to do that. Yeah.
Of course it does.
Huh? Let's see if our documentation is correct. Let's throw error on Windows. Right, let's do that. Time is it? 25 minutes left, and then I need to go and walk my dog. So actions, throw error on Windows. I've taken the one that takes the longest to run. That's probably not the smartest thing to do, but never mind. We've done it now. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to get summary outputs from Ubuntu and Mac, and we're going to get nothing from Windows. And that's because the write method of the iCake reporter isn't called on a failed build. And that's the issue that I think you linked me to a couple of weeks ago, where Geert van Horik was talking about it. So we've got our output from Mac, we've got our output from Ubuntu, and when this fails, it's not going to appear. Why did I pick the one that takes the longest? Seriously. There's probably an alias for the other ones that I was looking at as well, isn't there? Is running on Mac or is running... I could have picked either of them.
Yeah.
Never mind. We're there now. This is one thing I don't like about GitHub Actions Logger. It seems to get lost. Right, so, but anyway, we'll see it in there. So in the output of the Cake script, we get the individual task setup and teardowns, but we don't get a summary here either. So that write method is never called. So in our overridden one within the module, it's never going to get called either. So if we go to the summary, I don't actually know what it's going to show. Well, I suspect it's going to show nothing. So the macOS has got a summary, the Ubuntu has not got a summary, but we see an error being reported here from the build. Fine. What I think I want to see is setup, blah, dependency, error. I want to see it in the summary, and then the follow-up will be not run or not executed. And then the total, I think what I want the total to say is the total duration for the ones that did actually run.
Yeah, you're right. That is the issue that Garrick had.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with him. I think I want to see what was executed, because at the minute when a build fails, I can see that it failed, but then typically there's like a big stack trace, and then I have to scroll up past the stack trace in order to see what error or what task actually errored out. It would just be easier if this showed me, well, the setup ran, the dependency B ran, and then this one errored. So the skip reason wouldn't be included, obviously, but it would be here, just errored. And maybe put the error reason here, but that's potentially massive, so that's not really a good thing to put in there. But I want to see that the default task didn't complete or didn't run because some of the dependencies never ran. So that's maybe going to be my next job as well. So I should write some of these things down. So hold on. We need to show summary on failed build. We need to look at events in CakeEngine to allow knowledge of when setup teardown exist and if task is skipped. Okay. Why not jot it down in a GitHub issue? Because I need to flush it out a little bit more. I think there's more to it than that. There's a little bit more to it. And Jürgen saying, is running on Windows equals is running very, very long. Indeed it was. But in principle, I have achieved what I wanted to achieve. The main thing that I wanted here was the task summary. I wanted the task summary to be shown in the job summary, similar to what it currently does in the, because Jürgen confirmed that it does do it in the Azure pipelines summary, because it has a very similar thing in the output there. So I personally think this is useful, but I think we can also make it better within Cake itself by including the failure in the summary too. Okay, I sort of think that's a natural stopping point, but
did you write down? You wrote about the events and the information. Did you write down that we need something in the event args about the skips?
I did, and if the task is skipped, yes. Now that information I think is there because we saw it in the verbose output when it was a skip task, because that's where it gets written to. If when it's verbose at verbosity, the skip task is written out, but it writes out that it was skipped and it includes the reason why. So we need to push that into the event args, but I don't know when the criterion are executed to know whether it can be in the before or whether it would need to go in the after. But if it needs to go in the after, then what's the point in the before? You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I think there's some. We might need to draw a wee graph or something to show where all these things are getting thrown and when they're getting raised, so that we can decide if we've got enough information from the engine in order to do that. So yeah, lots of things to think about there. But yeah, any other comments on that? Because like I say, I think I'm sort of at a natural stopping point, so I think it would make sense, rather than jump onto something else, I think it would make sense to end it there. I see that Maurice has raised one other thing, so I will mention that, Maurice. Yes. So unless you had anything else, Nils, to raise while we're here.
No, I could throw pull requests at you.
Yeah. So I did see that there was one in Cake.recipe, yes, which was the addition of the intended target version of Cake.recipe. Because I had a couple of Slack messages from Jericho over the weekend. Rather than weekend, yes. I had a couple of messages from Jericho over the weekend saying that he's away to make some changes to Cake.addon discoverer to make use of that information. But will we need to ship a new 2.x version of the package, or will Cake.addon discoverer use what's in the repository on the default branch?
I think for the workings, he will pull the information out of the nupkeg, and
okay.
he needs the file in the repository so he can do a pull request on that file if he feels that we could update it.
Fair. Now, before we talk about anything else, the way that you just pronounced nupkeg, is that the way that you actually pronounce nupkeg, or are you saying that based solely on the fact that I'm here?
What did I say?
You said nupkeg, which is the correct way of saying it. So, what needs to happen next is I need to bring you onto the Chocolatey community stream as a Chocolatey contributor, because currently, I don't know if you know this, there is a battle going on between guests that we have on the show, and they are asked the correct pronunciation of the word that is spelt NUPKG, and I say it's nupkeg, but everyone else that we've had on says it's a new package. Now they're obviously all wrong, but I need to bring you on as a guest on that show.
Probably tainted from watching your.
Because it's like it's either 3-1. It's as in I'm the one. It's either 3-1 or 4-1 currently on the Chocolatey community streams, because everyone says new package rather than the correct pronunciation, which is nupkeg. So it's good to hear at least one other person in the world saying it. Because what I tried to point out to them in the last one was that, well, how do you pronounce snupkeg? Because is it a snoo package? That's just silly. Why would you say snoo package? It's a snupkeg. Or it's a symbols package, however you want to say it. But okay, anyway, in all seriousness, thank you very much for coming on, being an impromptu guest star on my Twitch stream here. It has worked.
Thank you for having me.
It has worked really well, so I'm pleased with how that went. What Maurice was referring to there, let me go to community.chocolatey.org. Then they may be here. Yes. No, maybe. No. Do we actually have it up? I don't know if we do. Yes, I do want the link there, Maurice. Yes. I thought we had it on the street. Maybe we haven't got it on there. So, yeah, send me the link, which is there. I'll go to here. I will grab that link, which is here. And I'll put it up on the stream. So, Maurice, who is a member also of the Veeam community. I'll get this title right, but he is a Veeam Vanguard. So for those that don't know, a Veeam Vanguard is similar to a Microsoft MVP or a GitHub Star, but in the Veeam community. So our very own Maurice is a Veeam Vanguard. And what he's organising over there is a month-long event, which is basically introducing Chocolatey to Veeam users. So there will be a daily question in the Veeam Automation Desk user group, where he'll be asking questions about Chocolatey, and there'll be points awarded for people who can answer the question correctly. And then on top of that, there is a event where myself and Paul, so Paul Broadwith from the team, on the 13th of December, we will be joining Maurice on a Veeam stream where we'll be chatting about all things Chocolatey and how they can be used by Veeam. looking at some of the Veeam packages that Maurice has created and how they can be utilized within the chocolate ecosystem, etc. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We do like the logo or the cat avatar thing that's been created here eating the chocolatey. I thought it was quite funny. So yeah, if you haven't, Alfred, is that his name? Beautiful. So Alfred the cat munching on a chocolatey chocolate bar there. Oh, it actually says it, sorry, I just missed that. But yeah, so if you haven't seen it, that's there. It's happening. First one being Thursday, I guess. First question going out on the Veeam automation desk. First question going out then. And then the event itself on the 13th. So feel free to chime in if you want to. But for now, I'm going to say that that's it. December 1st around 9 a.m. Central European time, I'm going to say is CET, which is an hour ahead of where I am, which is currently UTC. So, perfect. I think that's all I had. Thanks to everyone for joining in. I'm going to recap. The recap, more for my own sanity for when I look back at this. Recap-wise, we were working on the Cake.BuildSystems.Module, run into a couple of issues with the events and not being fine-grained enough in order to tailor the GitHub logging and grouping of the logging the way we want it to. So I think we have to go back to the drawing board within Cake.Engine itself to figure out how we can prove that out. But what we were able to achieve was writing out of the summary into the GitHub workflow output, the job output, to say what worked and what didn't work. I think there's a little bit of work there in terms of handling the failure cases. Again, we'll have to go back to the drawing board within Cake itself there. But the most important thing is Nils joined me on the stream. It all just worked. He joined me via the new functionality that is the Twitch guest star. So thank you to him for joining in. But yeah, that's it. So at the minute I'm planning on being here next week. There's no reason that I shouldn't be here next week. So feel free to come along again. I might have another person up in the top right hand corner, or we can do up to 5 guests, so we might have lots of people on the stream. But no, thank you very much, Nils. I appreciate it. I'll let you go and get on. And for now then, I will say that's it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.